this week, we are taking a moment to sit with the really profound insights shared in the pastor's message on Ruth, chapter 4. He titled it, Encountering God's Hand Through Despair.
Yes, it really was a powerful message, wasn't it? It felt like it went far beyond just, analyzing the text. It was more of a deep meditation on how God's grace works, often unseen, right when we feel most broken.
Exactly. Helpless, even.
Right. And I think our goal here today, our mission, if you like, is to really unpack and internalize the practical life applications that were shared, the things we can actually take into our lives this week.
I think for me, the absolute core of it, the thing that really grabbed my attention was that shift he talked about. Moving away from that question that just ties you in knots, the why. Why suffering? Why this loss?
The unanswerable why.
Precisely. And moving instead towards a more hopeful and honestly a more active question. How? How is God guiding me or supporting me or maybe teaching me something right now, right in the middle of this grief?
That shift is so crucial, isn't it? Because it pulls us out of just thinking and gets us towards, active faith right here, right now.
Yeah.
But he didn't start with theory, did he? He started with something deeply personal, almost raw. That story from his time serving down in Argentina.
Oh, that story. We should definitely spend a moment there. It was incredibly intense. He talked about getting that urgent call, rushing out in the night.
Right, to the home of this deaconess who was just deeply loved in the church, only to find out she'd passed away so suddenly.
The suddenness was jarring. He described arriving, seeing police cars, finding out that both she and her elderly mother-in-law had died overnight.
Yes, from toxic gas apparently seeping into the bathroom where they were sleeping. Just unimaginable. And he painted such a picture of this deaconess, pure, kind, sincere, a real pillar of faith.
Someone who had worked so hard, faced hardships as an immigrant, but kept her faith and diligence.
Absolutely. And the sorrow at that double funeral must have been immense. But then the story took another tragic turn.
That next layer of tragedy was almost too much. A few years later, her son, who he described as kind and devoted.
Yes, couldn't bear the ongoing weight of that grief, the loss, and tragically took his own life.
Hearing that, I just had to pause. That kind of compounding loss feels almost unbearable to think about.
It's hard to fathom, and what really struck me was the pastor's honesty about his own feelings at that second funeral. His sense of just helplessness, pain.
He admitted he had no easy answers.
Yeah.
Right? No script.
None. No magic words. And that very helplessness, that vulnerability, led directly to the first major practical point. The incredible importance of what he called the ministry of presence.
Yes, that was such a powerful realization drawn from that moment of feeling totally powerless. He said, look, sharing grief doesn't make it disappear. We can't fix it. We can't undo it.
We can't bring people back.
No, but feeling totally alone in that deep suffering, being isolated, that is truly heartbreaking. That causes its own kind of damage.
So his conclusion was that our simple presence, just being there, holds this immense, almost restorative power.
And it wasn't just an idea. This is where it gets really practical for all of us, isn't it? He gave concrete things we can actually do.
Exactly. Tangible actions. Hold a hand warmly. Pat someone gently on the back. Sit quietly beside them. Even shed tears together.
It's an act of silence, in a way. A participation in their grief without trying to solve it.
Yes. Setting aside our own need to fix things, which is often our first instinct, isn't it?
Definitely. And then he immediately connected this very human action to the divine example, which is so comforting. He reminded us that our Lord also wept with those who were grieving. He fully entered into human pain.
But here's where it got really interesting, theologically speaking. He pointed out that Jesus didn't just feel sorry for people.
Right. There was more to it.
Exactly. The pastor drew this fascinating distinction. Christ's reaction to death, like Lazarus's death, wasn't just sadness. The scriptures say he was deeply moved, even angered.
Angered? What was the anger about?
It was anger at death itself, particularly deaths caused by sin, by selfishness, by oppression, by the way the vulnerable are treated. It wasn't just grief. It was a righteous anger against the brokenness that causes such suffering.
So it confirms that God doesn't see our suffering lightly. He doesn't view death as just, a natural part of life.
Not at all. It's anger at the consequences of the fall, the sin that brought death and suffering into the world. It validates our pain and assures us that the enemy doesn't get the last word. Christ's grief and anger challenged death itself.
That deep empathy, even that anger, really sets the stage for understanding the book of Ruth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because that story starts in a place of absolute devastation.
Precisely. Naomi is in Moab, a foreign land. She's lost her husband Elimelech. Then, boom, she loses both her sons Mahlon and Chilion. She's utterly bereft. No husband, no sons, no security, no future, it seems.
Just emptiness. And I love the way the sermon used that stage play analogy to help us visualize her journey out of that emptiness, breaking the book into 4 acts.
That imagery is so helpful, especially when you feel stuck in your own dark times. Act 1, he said, is intense darkness. The stage is dim. Naomi's psychological state is heavy, weighed down. She even renames herself Mara, which means bitter.
She feels afflicted by God himself.
Yes. But then Acts 2 and 3 start to bring a gradual brightening. The stage lights come up a bit. Ruth makes her incredible declaration of loyalty. Boaz enters the scene.
There's movement, action.
Exactly. A slow, steady movement from that paralyzing despair towards active hope. From silence and sorrow towards joy, eventually. And by Act 4, which is Chapter 4, the happy ending emerges.
That stage analogy gives such hope, suggesting that even when we're deep in our own Act 1, the story, God's story, is already moving towards Act 4, towards restoration.
It does. But then the pastor added this really crucial insight about happy endings. He cautioned that a happy ending isn't always good if it just ignores or dismisses the journey it took to get there.
That really made me think, like, sometimes we just want the pain to stop and the good part to start, and we forget everything that happened in between.
Right. We just want to skip to the end credits. But the message stressed that the journey itself, the small decisions, the hardships, the moments of faithfulness during the struggle, all of that is incredibly valuable to God.
So God isn't just telling us, grit your teeth, endure this, it'll be fine eventually.
No, not at all. The emphasis was that God values every single moment, every tear, every loss, every bit of pain. He's with us in it, guiding us, strengthening us, not just waiting impatiently at the finish line.
Which brings us right back to that fundamental shift in perspective we talked about at the start, moving from why to how.
Exactly. The pastor acknowledged, look, if you fixate on why did this happen to me, you often just hit a wall. We can't fully grasp God's sovereign reasons with our limited understanding.
Those answers belong to him.
They do, and trying to demand them can just lead to more frustration or bitterness. So the response isn't demanding an explanation. It has to be a confession of faith, meaning we choose to trust even when we don't understand. We confess by faith that God's will is ultimately good, that he loves us, that he's present, even when he doesn't give us the detailed breakdown we crave. We anchor ourselves in who he is, not in our ability to figure out the why.
Okay, so if we accept that we can't always know why, what are the practical how questions we should be asking ourselves? Like, what does that look like when you wake up Monday morning facing difficulty?
Great question. It means consciously redirecting your thoughts. Instead of why me, ask things like, okay, God, how are you working in my life right now, even through this loss? Or how can this experience maybe teach me something? Patience, compassion, dependence on you.
Or even, how can I still serve others, even with my own struggles?
Precisely. How can I still bring glory to you in this situation, painful as it is? It shifts the focus from the past, which we can't change, to God's active presence and guidance right now.
And that focus on how leads perfectly into Ruth chapter 4, doesn't it? The climax of the story, the transaction at the city gate. We really need to look closely at the choices those two kinsmen made.
Yes, this contrast is incredibly revealing. It shows two totally different ways of looking at life, responsibility, and what matters most. The first relative, the one who isn't even named.
Significant in itself, maybe?
Perhaps. He approaches the whole thing like a business deal, purely profit and loss.
He was initially interested in the land, right? Elimelech's land. Saw it as a good investment.
Exactly. Good piece of property. But then Boaz explains the full picture. Under the law of the kinsman redeemer, the goal, it wasn't just about buying land. You also had to marry the widow, Ruth in this case, to raise up an heir for the deceased man.
Ah, and that heir would inherit the land.
Correct. Meaning the redeemer himself, the one putting up the money, wouldn't ultimately profit from the land in his own family line. It would go to the heir raised up in the name of the deceased.
So the moment the first relative heard that marrying Ruth and potentially having a son who would inherit the land was part of the deal, he backed out.
Instantly, he said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. He saw it purely as a financial risk, a potential loss to his own estate. Self-preservation kicked in immediately.
His world was defined by his balance sheet.
Absolutely. Now, Contrast that starkly with Boaz. His response wasn't a calculation, it was a declaration, I will redeem it.
Just like that, knowing the cost.
Knowing the potential personal cost. He was willing to potentially sacrifice his own financial gain, to take Ruth under his care, to redeem Naomi's land, and crucially, to ensure Elimelech's family name and legacy continued.
That feels so countercultural. Even today, we're taught to protect our assets, make wise investments. Boaz seems to be doing the opposite.
Well, that's the tension the sermon really highlighted. Boaz understood he was risking something tangible for himself, potentially diminishing his own estate for an heir not biologically his own in the direct line. But he did it to bless others, to restore a family, to fulfill God's purposes.
It's like two different economies operating.
Exactly. The world's economy often says, if I give, I lose. Protect what's yours. Calculate the risk. But the pastor reminded us God's kingdom operates on a different principle entirely.
Which is?
True love, service, restoration. It prioritizes relationships and legacy over personal profit. In God's economy, what you sacrificially give out of love often yields returns far beyond what earthly accounting can measure.
So Boaz chose responsibility over self-interest. He chose love, service, legacy.
Yeah, over potential loss. He prioritized Naomi, Ruth, the family name, and because he made that costly, faithful choice, God honored him profoundly, weaving him into the central story of redemption.
Which leads to that really practical challenge for us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To look at our own relationships, family, work, church, community, and consciously choose responsibility, choose sacrifice, choose love, even when it costs us something.
Yes. To make that Boaz-like commitment, trusting that God sees and honors sacrifices made out of love and principle rather than just calculating personal gain or loss, that takes real courage.
And as the message beautifully concluded, Boaz's act, that specific moment of costly redemption, is like a fragment, a foreshadowing of the ultimate Redeemer, Jesus Christ.
It's amazing, isn't it, that we humans can actually reflect, even in small ways, the character of our Creator and Savior through our actions.
It really is.
And that connection elevates everything. Boaz's redemption points straight to Christ's. The sermon brought in those powerful scriptures about our redemption.
Yes, reminding us we were bought with a price. Isaiah 43:1. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, you are mine.
And the consequence of that purchase, 1 Corinthians 6:20. You were bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. Because he paid the cost, our lives aren't just our own anymore.
And 1 Peter, clarifying the currency, not silver or gold, like Boaz might have used, but the precious blood of Christ. Irreplaceable.
And Revelation 5, showing the sheer scope people purchased for God from every tribe, language, people, and nation. God didn't just risk loss. He gave everything, his own life.
So the message was, even when we don't get the why, we can experience God's comfort, his guidance, his peace now because of the redemption he already accomplished. He embraces us, heals us, restores us through that ultimate sacrifice.
Exactly, and that leads to the final, breathtaking insight. The incredible, lasting impact of seemingly small acts of faith and obedience.
Right. Boaz and Ruth's marriage wasn't just their happy ending. It wasn't just Act 4 closing neatly.
No, it turned out to be the absolutely critical link in the family line leading directly to King David.
And ultimately to Jesus Christ himself. It's right there in the genealogy at the end of Ruth chapter 4.
It's staggering when you think about it. God's redemption works on a scale far beyond our immediate results. It impacts future generations, whole communities, the entire sweep of salvation history. We worry about our immediate problems.
Our Act 1 pain.
Yes, but God is weaving a much larger tapestry. He uses those small, everyday acts, honesty, diligence, loyalty, kindness, sacrifice, to complete this grand, eternal picture.
So the genealogy of the Messiah hinged on a foreign widow's loyalty and a landowner's willingness to risk financial loss for the sake of family and faith.
That's the profound takeaway. God works through our small faithfulness. Every quiet prayer, every act of service, every tear shed in faith, every moment of choosing responsibility over ease, it all contributes. It becomes eternal fruit in his plan.
So the message really left us with a twofold call to action, didn't it?
It did. First, hold those who are grieving. Be present. Follow Christ's example. Don't try to fix. Just show up with love. Keep doing those small, daily acts of faith and obedience. Trust that they matter, that they accumulate, that God is using them in ways you might never see this side of eternity.
That final thought was so encouraging, even when we feel like we're stuck in failure or loss in our own Act 1.
We have to hold on to the assurance that God is preparing restoration. He's working behind the scenes, setting the stage for blessing, just like he did for Ruth and Naomi.
Which leaves us with that final challenge for the week ahead.
Yeah.
Live courageously. Reach out. Love. Serve. Even when it feels risky or costly.
Trusting that God's hidden hand, his grace, his redemptive power is always at work, weaving restoration even out of our deepest despair.